Number 9. Plastic surgery payback. In 2016, Colombian model Yami Ray arrived at the Bogota airport to catch a flight to Miami, when she was instead taken into police custody on a warrant for allegedly kidnapping and torturing a rival model. Ray and her sister Claudia were accused of forcing Carolina Munoz into a car in early 2015 and cruelly tormenting her for making fake social media profiles with unflattering pictures of the sisters from before they got plastic surgery. Munoz claimed that Yami and Claudia bit her, electrocuted her, shaved her head, and cut her clothes off during their rage-filled revenge tirade. She said that the pair threatened to ruin her life, burn her face with acid, and kill her. They told her that they knew powerful people and wouldn't go to prison. After carrying out the brutal assault, the sisters reportedly posted naked photos of Munoz on social media. Munoz admitted to creating the fake profiles after Claudia and Yami wrote nasty comments about her on social media. Regardless of who started it, the rivals clearly got caught up in a toxic and immature tit-for-tat that the Rays took way too far when they decided to physically harm Munoz. At the time of Yami's capture, Claudia was still at large. Number 8. A woman scorned. 55-year-old Raymond Cullen ended his tempestuous 3-year relationship with 47-year-old Tracy Fielding in 2019. Not long after that, she began asking people to kill him. She did it often enough for one witness to later say that from the moment she met Fielding, she knew her to ask people to murder Cullen. But a lot of people didn't take her seriously because she was drunk and didn't truly have the 5-figure sum she was offering in exchange for having her ex taken out. Cullen was receiving treatment at a hospital for a terminal illness in 2019 when Tracy smashed the windows at his flat and destroyed the inside. Concerned for the safety of his loved ones, he stayed at a hotel for 2 weeks following his time in the hospital in hopes that the situation would calm down. Just weeks after returning to his home, Cullen was murdered in cold blood at the hands of a home intruder who bludgeoned him to death. In a final act of humiliation, the killer poured paint all over him. Naturally, suspicion immediately fell on Tracy. It was soon discovered that she had finally convinced someone to murder Cullen. Witnesses pointed the finger at her new boyfriend, 38-year-old David Carney, and police matched footprints at the scene with a pair of the man's shoes. The couple initially denied any involvement in Cullen's death, but Carney ultimately pleaded guilty to murder and received a life sentence. Tracy pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 9 years and 9 months in prison. Number 7. Renegade Army Ranger. Manfredo Madrigal III established a successful U.S. military career that was ripped out from under him in early 2022. After serving as an Army Ranger, the 36-year-old was assigned to the military's legal branch, known as the Judge Advocate General's Legal Center and School, JAG School, in Charlottesville, Virginia. He wasn't there for long before the military discharged him for failing to disclose a previous DUI conviction. Madrigal tried to delete online JAG training materials without authorization. He recorded a video of himself doing it while spewing profanity and threatening to bring their house down on them. Later that evening, Madrigal contacted his ex-girlfriend, listed in a federal complaint as Victim 1, and claimed that Russian officials recruited him as an informant and that he planned to travel to the country. He also tried to call the Russian embassy. When the FBI got involved a few months later, Madrigal denied deleting the JAG training materials or having any unreported contact with a foreign national. His phone records proved that he was lying and also turned up evidence that he had been harassing his ex-girlfriend for months. She told agents that she was terrified of him and that on one occasion he threatened her with a gun. Madrigal tried getting another former partner listed in the complaint as Victim 2 to provide false information about him to the FBI, but she told agents that he had coached her on what to say before she met with him. Like his other ex, she accused him of holding her at gunpoint during an argument. He faces a federal cyber-stalking charge for the allegations involving victim 1. It's unclear whether he could face more charges for any other suspected crimes. Number 6. Murdered Muslim men. An entire community was left on edge in 2022 when 4 Muslim men were murdered in Albuquerque, New Mexico, over a short time period. While it's unclear whether all 4 murders are connected, police believe that at least 3 of them are. 27-year-old Mohammed Afzal Hussein, 41-year-old Aftab Hussein, and 25-year-old Naeem Hussein were all Muslim men from Pakistan. At the last update, police were trying to determine if the murder of Mohammed Ahmadi, a Muslim man from Afghanistan, has anything to do with the other 3. They identified a vehicle of interest in the case and appealed to the public for help identifying the suspect, offering a $30,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Detectives soon connected the vehicle to 51-year-old Mohammed Syed and charged him with the murders of Aftab Hussein and Mohammed Afzal Hussein. They suspect that Syed, who is a Sunni Muslim, targeted the victims for being Shiite Muslims and that he may have personally known them. In a display of solidarity with the Muslim community, several prominent leaders issued statements on the murders, including President Joe Biden, who expressed his condolences for the victims' families and said that the hateful attacks have no place in America. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham vowed to bring the killer to justice. Number 5. Kaufman County Murders. 57-year-old Mark Hass was working as the Chief Assistant District Attorney in Kaufman County, Texas, when he was murdered in early 2013. He was walking from the courthouse to his car when a gunman shot him multiple times, then fled in a getaway car. 2 months later, Kaufman County Criminal District Attorney Michael McClelland and his wife Cynthia were found shot dead in their home. Family friend C.J. Tomlinson and his stepfather had gone to check on the couple after not hearing from them for a while. They were surprised to discover that the front door was unlocked, since 63-year-old McClelland had been especially cautious about personal safety since the murder of his colleague. The murders rocked the community, which was typically safe. Many public officials were placed under police protection, both at home and at work, and there was a noticeable increase in courthouse security. When a prosecutor is killed, the list of possible suspects is huge, since almost anyone accused of a crime arguably has a motive. But the 2 victims had only tried one case together, and detectives connected the crimes to former Justice of the Peace, Eric Williams. Williams had been elected to the position in 2010 and had complained about the court's outdated technology. He wanted updated equipment badly enough to steal 3 computer monitors from a county building. Prosecutors offered to forego a trial if he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge, but he refused and was then hit with a felony charge in connection with the incident. He was found guilty and lost his position as a judge, as well as his law license. After the murders, Williams' wife, Kim, testified in court that he plotted to kill several of his former co-workers, including a fellow judge who he planned to murder with a crossbow. She was accused of helping her husband plan the murders and received a 40-year prison sentence. Williams was found guilty of murder and was sentenced to death. Number 4. Mother and son versus marathon runner. When marathon runner Gary Dean began using a privately owned footpath near his home in the English village of Silkston Common in 2016, he had no idea that he was putting his life at risk. The property had recently been purchased by mother-son duo Carol Dawson and her adult son Scott, and they had a major problem with Dean running along their land. Dean, who was on the autistic spectrum, wasn't causing any harm, but for whatever reason, the pair didn't want him there. They tried having him prosecuted and even accused him of trying to lure children into the forest and other horrible things that weren't even true. The feud became publicly known, and people didn't hesitate to take sides. Dean and his wife were routinely followed by strangers who had believed the horrible rumors being spread about them. The couple eventually secured an order of protection against the Dawsons, but that only seemed to escalate things. One morning in 2018, Carol and Scott waited for Dean to cross onto their property during his morning run. They shot him in the back of the head with an air rifle and and then beat him to death with rocks. The Dawsons were convicted of murder in 2019. Carol was sentenced to life with a minimum of 26 years, and Scott received the life sentence with a minimum of 31 years. At their sentencing, the judge presiding over the case described how they carried out Dean's murder with brutal determination. He went on to say that Dean's behavior had been slightly antisocial at worst, and that the Dawsons had killed a well-liked and harmless community member in their reckless quest for revenge. Number 3. Anti-College Crusade. Staff members at New Mexico State University's Office of Institutional Equality received some disturbing phone calls in 2022. A man who threatened to burn the college to the ground in just a half hour's time. He claimed that there wouldn't be enough fire trucks available to douse the blaze. In one message, the caller said that he didn't care if his actions killed people. Describing human lives as garbage, he said that he'd be happy if everyone on the other end of his call died. He also went on a tangent criticizing the BLM, although it was unclear whether he was referring to the Black Lives Matter movement or the Bureau of Land Management, both of which have dealt with their fair share of controversy in recent years. Both state and federal authorities traced the calls to 54-year-old John Hamilton. He faces a laundry list of charges, including using a telephone to terrify, intimidate, threaten, harass, annoy, or offend, as well as making interstate threats. It's unclear whether he has a personal or political vendetta against the Office of Institutional Equality. Even before the phone calls began, the office received several student conduct complaints against Hamilton. His earliest reported interactions with staff reportedly involved him leaving perverted messages. Now he'll have to answer for his alleged crimes in 2 separate courts. Number 2. A Poet's Peril. 82-year-old Peppino Marotto was walking to go buy a newspaper one day in 2008 on the Italian island of Sardinia when a gunman shot him 6 times. The highly praised poet, who was known for his depictions of peasants, shepherds, and old-time gang members, was well liked throughout Sardinia. Or so it seemed. Marotto's killer seemed to know that his victim had a daily habit of walking to buy the newspaper. The murder was very deliberate, and it was clear that Marotto was specifically targeted. Someone clearly had a problem with him and was waiting for him to walk by that day. Shortly after his murder, rumors began to spread in his remote hometown, Orgosolo, about Marotto possibly being the victim of a decades-old vendetta. The gossip contained hints of an ongoing feud dating as far back as 50 years. And while the town's grapevine was buzzing with chatter, none of the people who were present in a busy square where the murder took place wanted to talk to the police. Marotto was imprisoned during the 1950s for robbery and attempted murder. That's when he began writing poetry. At the time, Orgosolo was plagued by armed robberies. The area is historically known for its history of banditry, which continues to influence the culture to this day. To this day, it remains unclear whether Marotto was killed to satisfy a long-standing grudge or if there were other reasons behind it. If anyone knows, they're not talking, at least not to the police, leaving the circumstances surrounding the cryptic murder up to speculation. Number 1. Property dispute gets personal. 81-year-old Robert Bitar and town officials in Redfield, Maine are caught up in a years-long property dispute that has taken creativity and pettiness to a whole new level. It all started back in 2013 when town manager Eric Dyer issued a stop work order on a residential property Bitar owns for making structural changes without the proper permits. In 2017, Bitar was accused of trying to use one of his properties for commercial purposes when it was only approved for use as a single-family dwelling. These allegations became thematic to the incessant back and forth that continues to this day, and it seems like neither party is any closer to relenting now than they were on day one. Over the years, Bitar has accused Dyer of using government outreach to crush and silence the little guy, according to the Kennebec Journal. Dyer, on the other hand, says he just wants Bitar to obey property laws, but that the senior citizen has an obsessive vendetta against him. More recently, Bitter announced plans to host a concert at a large barn he owns that is only approved for residential use. He had applied for permission to turn it into a community centre and was denied, but he made it clear on social media that the concert wasn't going to be a public event. It would be free to attend, thereby making the event compliant with the law. Dyer pointed out that Bitter had bragged about how 1,500 people had shown an interest in coming to the concert, which requires a mass gathering permit. Bitter fired back, saying that there's a difference between showing interest in an event and attending it. At this point, lawyers are involved, and Dyer obtained a protection order after Bitter bought a property right next door to him and allegedly went out of his way to make his presence known. Bitter denies the allegations, but has already found himself accused of violating the order. What comes next in this cringeworthy yet fascinating saga is anyone's guess. Thanks for watching. Would you rather deal with a bitter ex who was trying to get you fired from your job and ruin your life, or a former best friend who went out of his or her way to try stealing your love interests away from you? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.